welcome to another episode of Kotaku Split Screen, the only podcast where the moon covers the sun in totality. Today, Kirk and I are talking about our various adventures out in the wild from Alaska to Oregon. Then we'll get into the news of the week, including Super Nintendo Classic pre-order disaster, Kyrie Irving screwing up NBA 2K, and Brink going free to play. We cap things off by talking about No Man's Sky's changes, Madden's shockingly good story mode, and Final Fantasy Tactics, which is, I would say, a perfect video game, as long as you don't play with Orlando. You know what I mean? All right, let's go. We are back for another episode. My name is Jason Schreier. I am the news editor at Kotaku.com, and I am rejoined by Kirk Hamilton, editor at large.
Technically, I am rejoined by you. I've been here for what feels like 100 years with no Jason Schreier on a little toy system that isn't, it's
Could not pre-order them.
Cool. You can find us wherever you get your...
24. Another total eclipse.
Start booking your hotel.
Well, I believe it's going through New York. I don't know about through New York City, but through New York State at least. So that's in a little under 7 years. I think it's in April of 2024. It's also going through my hometown of Bloomington, Indiana. So we're planning to go there and see it. But so you'll have a chance to see it.
Can I come to your house?
In Indiana?
Yeah.
I can check. I can ask Emily's parents if they'd be into that.
Oh yeah, your parents moved. I forgot.
Yeah, they're not in Indiana anymore.
All right, so Eclipse. Now that the eclipse is over, we can't talk about it anymore. It's all moved on.
It's done.
Now it's back
We're
to
now
Game
in a
of Thrones
post-eclipse
stuff.
world.
As far as the media now, it's as far as articles that get lots of traffic. The eclipse is over. It's time
Yes.
to talk about Game of Thrones again.
Yes, finally.
Why don't we take a quick break and then we will talk about some video game news.
Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Joanna Rothkopf.
And I'm Prachi Gupta.
And we're the hosts of Jezebel's Big Time Dicks.
We look at the laws and lawmakers fucking up your life. And we speak with incredible guests like Senator Elizabeth Warren.
What Donald Trump has done threatens the security of the United States.
And we specifically focus on issues affecting women and people of color.
This is really making people hold their families closer. People are afraid to go to work. People are afraid to send their children to school.
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, so first up, as far as video game news of the week, is I'm looking at our notes right now, and here's what Kirk Hamilton wrote in today's show notes. The fucking SNES Classic, I guess. Thank you, Kirk.
That's about how I feel about it. That I'd say that accurately sums up my feelings.
So to summarize what happened this week is the Super Nintendo Classic, which is Nintendo's retro system that comes with 21 Super Nintendo games in this cute little adorable mini SNES shell, and sells for $80. That went up for pre-order, and it was all a disaster. So first, I think it was Tuesday morning at about 1:30 a.m. Eastern time, Best Buy started taking pre-orders. Then Amazon went up at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time. So if you are not on the East Coast or you're lucky enough to be up, maybe you got one of those. But then later in the day on Tuesday, GameStop started opening for pre-orders, but only in store. So you would have to run to your store within like 45 minutes of them making the announcement to get one. Then their website was just down all day, all afternoon. And then they directed people to ThinkGeek, where you could only pre-order an SNES Classic if you bought one of these stupid $400 bundles or $300 bundles with a bunch of other crap that nobody wants, which is just like such a racket. ThinkGeek is owned by GameStop, by the way. And then it just became a disaster, and lots of people who wanted Super Nintendo Classics, you included, myself included, could not pre-order them, and it's just a big old bummer.
I think it says a lot that both you and I was even up on Tuesday night. I was actually writing my Eclipse review because I had just gotten home, and I looked at Twitter and I saw that they were available on Best Buy, and I kind of got on Best Buy and I was like, oh, and I was trying to order it, and like the site wasn't working, and my shopping cart, couldn't accept it. And I was sitting there doing the same stupid dance of like trying to order something. I think the last time was the Majora's Mask 3DS XL, and just thinking, what the fuck am I doing? And then the fact that until now, like, you and I both haven't been able to get them. Like, and I'm watching like all these like games journalists and like industry professionals in my Twitter feed. Nobody can get one. Like, these are people who are like on the internet all day, like paying attention, really, really focused on getting one of these things and can't get one. And it's just the dumbest shit. I'm like, the way that it's rolled out, the way they're just happening at random and then just clearing out in 20 minutes, the whole thing has made me completely like.
It's not 20 minutes. Hold on, let's be clear. So at 1 o'clock, Walmart or Target, one of those two, went up for pre-orders, and I was on it at 1 o'clock. By 1:01, they were gone.
Oh, I'm
This
saying
is
so.
like
Best Buy
something
was
that-
available for like 20 minutes, I guess. So
Oh,
the
it
other
was?
ones are
So-
going much faster.
If I had been up and known, I would have gotten one for sure
Yeah.
of Best Buy. Because I like am on it as soon as this thing hits. Like, it
So-
would be.
The thing that makes me bummed about this, or the thing that is annoyed me about this, is that this is not like this is a fucking like toy with a couple of 20 retro games on it. Like, yes, it has Star Fox 2. We did a whole episode talking about why this thing seemed cool, and even at the end of that episode, this is a little while ago, we had Chris Kohler on and talked about at great length about the SNES Classic. And at the end of that episode, I was like, okay, I'm convinced this thing sounds cool. I was kind of borderline. Now I'm sort of thinking, okay, I want one. And now that's where I was earlier this week. And then I started going through this process and realizing that it was just going to be a massive pain in the ass, and thinking, why the hell is this the thing that's going to be the huge, impossible to get pain in the ass? This is like a bunch of games that came out forever ago on a little toy system that isn't, it does not seem like the sort of thing that should be this sort of an ordeal and be like ruining people's days, and everyone's stressing out and staying up late at night and watching Twitter to try to get this thing that like fundamentally you can play any of those games now except Star Fox 2, I guess, but like it's just
Well,
not.
that's the funny thing. The reason it's an ordeal is because it's an ordeal. And the reason that everyone's freaking out is because
Yes.
Nintendo made it clear last time around that this thing is going to be impossible to get. Even though Nintendo has said, oh, we're going to have more supply this time around, it's clear to everyone that they also said that they're going to stop producing them after this year. So this
Right.
is going to be a limited edition item. Even with the NES Classic, I think a lot of people figured they didn't have to pre-order and they could just pick one up later. But then when it turned out that wasn't true, now everyone knows this time around that if they want one, they're going to have to buy them right away, and you won't be able to wait. And so that
like,
fever has driven even more of
Right.
this insanity, and
Right.
so now it's an ordeal. And if Nintendo had just been like, all right, this is not a limited edition, we're going to print it, we're going to make as many of these things as people want, then it would not be like this, and people would not just feel so agitated and angry and upset about this whole thing.
It's perverse because on the one hand, like, instead of Nintendo, like, obviously they said that the thing about, oh, we're going to make more, but right now it feels like instead of Nintendo learning from the launch of the SNES Classic for the SNES Classic, which is then the one that everyone really wants to begin with, instead it feels like people, like consumers, learned that we need to be completely crazy about this, and Nintendo didn't learn shit, and so like it's just it is like become a self-perpetuating phenomenon where everyone's like, well, but I just really want one. I mean, I even had that feeling of like, well, I just want to know I have a pre-order, and I really had to like stop myself and say, wait a minute, you don't even care. There's a really good chance that I will never play any of the games on that thing. I'll play 5 minutes of Star Fox 2 and then be like, whatever, I've some other game that just came out that is way more interesting, and I'm gonna play that instead of like replaying Link to the Past. And so it really does work to like build itself, and that is a very weird thing, given that this should just be something that, as Chris Kohler said to me yesterday, we were talking, he's like, this should be an impulse buy that you make at their drugstore. Like, this thing should just be like the Sega Genesis ones that are just sitting at Walgreens, piled up for $40. Like, they should just be everywhere, and if you want one, you get one. This should not be the hot item of 2017, so it's very weird.
Yeah, so I'm assuming, I mean, there are two possibilities here, I think. Because Nintendo is not a stupid company. They are run by smart people. They are not incompetent despite some of their decisions that they made. There are two possibilities as far as I see them. One is that they love this and they want it to be the limited edition that everybody's talking about, that's trending on Twitter all the time. And even if they piss a few people off, they are convinced that the brand power and the headlines and the fact that this will drive interest toward the Switch and maybe eventually to their virtual console, if Super Nintendo games are on there or whatever, they are like eating this up and they love it. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that they just do not have the manufacturing capability, and they do not have the warehouses to make enough of these things, and they just don't want to admit it, so they try to stay vague about how many units they're actually going to produce, and they don't tell anyone when it's going to happen, and they're just being kind of vague about the details.
Yeah. And
That I think is the most likely possibility.
I think there's room for both. I mean, I think they could be.
Sure.
This could be partly for logistical, practical reasons, and they could